Good evening. It's good to be with you. We've been looking forward to come and give you an update on the ministry. This children's home is your ministry. Your prayers and support is the reason we can be there. And the Lord's really blessed and touching a lot of lives. Appreciate your prayers for us and for the ministry. And I had to have a surgery on my right foot a while back. And Lord willing, next Friday I'll be having surgery on the left foot to get things straightened out. So I appreciate your prayers there. But no matter what we go through, God's always with us, and there's always a reason for it. And one time I was talking to a preacher, and he said, I never saw in the Bible anywhere where it said that being in a wheelchair or anything like that was a reason to slow down on the Lord. That if we're able to go, we need to do all we can for God. And one thing too, a while back, a lot of you know about my situation. I had to have double knee surgery. For a couple of months there was a lot of pain and everything, but the Lord really showed me a lot during that time. And a lot of times people ask us to pray for them, and we say, I'll pray for you. But a lot of times until we've experienced pain and felt pain, we don't realize the pain that people go through. And sometimes the Lord allows us to face different things to help us to have more compassion for other people. And our ministry is helping hurting children, hurting families, and the Lord is really blessed. We're in our 83rd year as a ministry, and this August has been 17 years that the Lord's allowed my wife and I to be a part of the ministry. We've met so many nice people traveling for the children's home, and again, we thank you so much for letting us come give you an update each year. We're located outside of Greenville, Tennessee. We're right next door to the Camp Creek Elementary School, and we started in 1939 as an orphanage, and the Lord's opened a lot of doors for us. Now we minister to the entire family, from expectant mothers all the way through senior citizens. And Brother Jim Mccomas is our new director at the Children's Home, and he's been with us about 4 years now, and he's already been such a blessing to the ministry. Tell you just a little bit about him. Him and his wife Beth, they're always on the road traveling, and we ask you to pray for them that God would keep them safe. But they had two sons, Matthew and Aaron, and in 2017 they lost their son Matthew to drugs. And so they really had a burden to reach out and help hurting children and hurting families. The Lord gave him a special message on breaking the chains that bind us, how that Satan will use anything he can to destroy our lives, and how that God, with his help, God can deliver us from all that, and we need the Lord to take care of us. But he shared a message and traveling around, and it's helped a lot of other families that's had children and adults in their families that's been having issues with drugs or alcohol or something. And so we just thank God that he's a part of our ministry now. We started our drug and alcohol program back there at the Children's Home too. We have 6 to 8 teenagers in that program now. And we had one young man recently saved, and a couple weeks ago was baptized. That was in our drug program. Brother Jim wants to be close to the children there at the home that we have on campus there in Greenville. And so each week, Lord willing, he has what he calls a dinner and a devotion with the children. And he'll have a meal with them, and then he'll have a devotion, a Bible study with them, and have special prayer requests. He'll share his heart. They'll share their hearts with him. And the Lord's touching a lot of lives through that special time that he has with the children. And his wife, Beth, is always with him traveling, so just really pray, watch over them. And then also we have a new chief operating officer. His name is Brother Jim Robinette. He's also from Ohio, a good Christian man. He worked with the Ford Motor Company for over 30 years, and he's in financial development with them. And he's already done a lot with our ministry to help us that we can reach out and touch even more lives. Some of you may know his wife. His wife's name is Tammy Jones Robinette. She's a gospel singer and songwriter, and she's also the sister to Annette Parsons of the Parsons. My wife's having a little trouble advancing the picture. She runs me through it real fast, so she'll get me going here in a minute. Okay, this is our office. It's located on the campus there in Greenville. We have between 25 and 30 children on campus there. We have the school there at the Children's Home. We have school year-round. And so we just thank God that we can have a special education program for them, a good Christian-based centered ministry. I do have another picture on there. Yeah, I'm sorry they're having problems with it. Okay, this is a picture of the children's home. It's called the children's home or the orphanage, or a lot of them called it the big house. And then Trula Cronk was our first child there, 1939. Her mom had just passed away when we opened up a children's home, so she came there to live, grew up at the home, and then she went to the Free Will Baptist Bible College, and that's where she met her husband, and the Lord called them to be missionaries, and they went to India, was missionaries for over 25 years. Also, throughout his ministry, he pastored several churches, and he also set up tent meetings, camp meetings, and revival services throughout the country. But that was the first child that came to the home, and how the Lord touched her life and used them to touch so many other people's lives. And then this is our office there, located there on campus. And this is a couple more of the homes that children live in. We're currently serving between 145 and 150 children on a daily basis throughout our ministry. We have between 50 and 60 children in foster care, and it's a good Christian families that children can grow up in. They range in age from under 2 up to 18 years of age. And a couple more of the homes, all the homes we have there has been given to us by families or individuals so the children would have nice homes to live in. Last year, throughout our ministry, all the different parts of our ministry, we had over 150 souls accept Christ as their Savior. And if only 1 or 2 lives had been changed, it'd be worth it all. But God is touching so many lives. And then this is our school, our learning center. We was needing more classrooms. God really blessed and provided. We had a school expansion project. Behind the tall glass window there, we have a chapel there in the school. We have 6 new classrooms. We have a computer lab. We have a library. We have a meeting room for the board of directors that oversees our ministry. I like the way our ministry is structured because every year in June, we have an auditor that comes in, and they spend 2 or 3 weeks going over everything about the ministry. Our ministry is owned by the Free Will Baptist there in Tennessee, and so we have a lot of good Christian accountability and leadership. But to have the auditor come in, and then he'll meet with the board of directors, make recommendations on how we can touch even more lives throughout the ministry. They also work on our budget for the coming year. And then in November, when they have the Tennessee State meeting of the Free Will Baptist, they present all this information that's voted on and approved by the state. Board members serve 5-year terms. If someone's rotating off the board, then they vote to put the new board members on at that time. So we just have a real good Christian leadership throughout the ministry. And then we have 3 homes in Arkansas. We have 1 home in Little Rock, Arkansas. We have between 12 and 15 children at this location. It's really a blessing the first time we went out and visited the children there to see the smiles on their face, know that they're in a good, loving home, and that we're able to help show God's compassion and love to them. And one thing, too, about this home, it has all kinds of antique furniture in it. So they give us a tour of the home when we got there. And I've got a couple pictures I want to share with you tonight. And they had what's called a, let me see if I get that picture up here in a minute. They have, it's called a court and chair or a Dayton chair. And it has 3 sections in it. And it has one section for the girl, has one section for her boyfriend, and then one section for the parent or chaperone. And when I show this to churches, especially that have teenage daughters, they won't know if those chairs are still available. And then we have the Maggie House in Charleston, Arkansas. We went in, remodeled, and converted this into 4 cottages for children. We opened it in December of 2015, and we have between 15 and 22 children at this location. And I've got a picture here in a minute of the first children that come to live there, and we opened it right before Christmas. And just to see, they came there and they was looking around, and I know they were just wondering what kind of place the children's home is, because a lot of them had been through some bad situations, and they had their little bags and their belongings. And one time we had a child come to the home, and he said, "What do they do to children here?" And they told him, said, "We love children here." And a lot of them has been through hurt and abuse. And to come and find a good, loving home means so much to them. This is the first 3 children to come to live there. On the left was 2 little brothers, and we got word that they had recently been adopted by a family, so we're really excited for them. And then we opened up a home in July 2017 in Fort Smith, Arkansas. We have 4 cottages there, and we have between 23 and 32 children at this location. And then in Greenville, we have the Heartstone Farm. We have a lot of animals. We use especially the horses for therapy. A lot of the young people have been through an awful lot, and they'll work with the animals. They'll talk to them. Then it helps them open up more to us. And we have a gentleman, his name is Kelly. He works with our animals there on the farm and also with our children. And he said, I'm going to send you a picture. He said one of our teenage boys was concerned about the sun affecting his horse's eyes. So he said, I'm going to send you a picture of how he tried to help his horse out. So the next picture is how he helped his horse. And then we recently had a horse given to us by a gentleman in Murphy, North Carolina. It's been trained by a professional, so it's real gentle, and we can use it to work with the children there at the children's home as therapy to help them through situations they're going through. And we also have a donkey family there. And the shortest donkey is the newest member of the family, and I've got his baby picture. And then we also have some miniature horses there on the farm. And then about a mile up the road from the children's home is our Oats Retreat. It's a youth camp church retreat, and the Lord's really touched a lot of lives through that part of our ministry. We have campsites there. It's available year-round for groups, individuals to come and spend time with us. A lot of times we've had one gentleman come. He had just retired. He had been a carpenter all his life, and he retired, came up there, set up his camper, and spent a month with us and helped us to do repair work around the camp and at the children's home. And then also we have a lot of times churches will come up and they'll spend time with us, and they'll bring groups up and they'll stay in our different facilities, and they'll have services while they're there, and we really encourage that. And this is our tabernacle where we have our services there at camp. And then this is our dining hall where we'll have our meals at camp. And this is some of our girls' cabins and some of our boys' cabins. And then this is our lodge and activity center. And you'll notice a lot of the big beams in the structure there. In July of 2001, we had a lot of rain in a short period of time. We had a lot of flooding. We was blessed that no one was injured, but it caused a lot of damage. It washed a lot of trees down off the side of the mountain. Then they come in, set up a portable sawmill. They cut up all those trees, and then they use them in the lodge when they build it. And then out front in the lodge, we have a fireplace area where you can have just a relaxing time there at the children's home. And then down each side of the lodge, we have 8 rooms. And a lot of churches, when they come over, they'll have a church retreat, spend a few days with us. They'll stay in the lodge and the cabins and campsites. And we've had a lot of our children we brought up for special services when you're there. And that's really a blessing because a lot of our children get saved during special services like that. We had one young man that come, and he'd been abused most of his life. And he just had always had a battle in his heart, just fighting people until he came there and he got saved at the children's home. But when he first came there, he said he just couldn't understand why churches would want to come and spend time with them. And I said, it's because they love you and they care about you. And then when they find Christ as their Savior, then they see what it's all about. Inside the lodge, we have a fireplace area where you have meetings, devotions. And we have a kitchen there where they can prepare meals there at the lodge. And then we have all kinds of games, activities. We have foosball, volleyball, basketball. We have a climbing wall in there. And then on the outside there of the lodge, we have a little playground area. And then out in the woods, we have 2 zip lines. They're 40 feet up in the air, and they go down through the woods, and they're really a lot of fun. And We have a low ropes course, a lot of obstacle course, a lot of challenging activities, and then it teaches them teamwork because they have to really help each other to make it through, a lot of them. And then they apply to their everyday lives, how as we go through life, Satan is always trying to trip us up. And if someone stumbles and falls, we're not supposed to shove them on down, but we're supposed to be there to lift each other up and encourage and support each other. And then we have a swimming pool there, a shower house. We have a water slide there. And then we have volleyball. And we have a couple of horseshoe pits. And this is during youth camp, and they took a hike up to the waterfalls. And while they're up there, they baptized all the young people that stayed during camp that week. And this youth group, the last night of camp, they got to have a shave cream fight. And I think our pictures from our flash drive is just a little slow loading on your computer. I apologize for that, but my wife will get me through here as quick as we can. This is one of the young men in the shave cream fight. I think they said he went on to be a preacher. This is our Hope Center ministry, and life is so precious. We thank God for this part of our ministry, that we can be there to help the young mothers make the right choice concerning their babies. And this is Pam Crank. She's over our Hope Center ministry, and one of the babies recently born through the Hope Center ministry. And this is the building we moved into in April 2011. It's a larger building so that we have more room to work with the young mothers. We have special classes on how to be a good parent. One thing, too, that sometimes when they come to the Hope Center and they aren't married, they find out they're going to have a baby, that's when they need support more than ever. And so our ministry, they wanted us to have a maternity home if a single mom and her baby needed a safe place to live. So we had got with a couple of businessmen there in Greenville and told them what we were looking for. And to show you how the Lord works things out, they got back with us and found that the building right next door to the Hope Center, on the right there, that it was for sale. And so the two businessmen purchased that building for us. And so for the last 3 years, we've been raising money for the maternity home, and it's almost completed now. I know you brought a group over to the Hope Center and got to spend some time there, and they showed you around different things going on. But the building next door there, they gutted out the inside, and they put a new roof on it. They extended it out the back, and now we have 5 apartments there for young mothers and their babies, and we have 1 apartment there for the house parents that oversees that part of our ministry. And we recently had the ribbon cutting ceremony there at the maternity home. We'll have a picture there for that. And they just had the ribbon cutting ceremony. And Sharon Hodgins, that had been over our Hope Center for years, got to come back. She had retired this past September. She got to come back for the ribbon cutting ceremony. And we just got all of our certifications completed. Everything's ready now. So just any day we'll be getting young mothers and their babies that will be staying there. We'll work with them on how to be a good parent. We'll help them on how to cook, how to manage a budget. If they need help with their education, we'll help them with their education. We'll help them find a job, an apartment, everything we can to help them get out to a real good start. And this is a picture of an embryo that's 12 weeks along in the pregnancy. And they said in 2005 that there was 1.2 million abortions, and of those, over 132,000 was done around week 12. And it says if we would honor each baby that's been aborted since 1973 with a moment of silence, that we would be silent for over 100 years. And since 1973, there's been over 63 million babies aborted. And you know, we've faced a lot of different issues now with cancer and different things like that. And I heard someone say one time when we were sharing this ministry, the preacher said, you know, out of those 63 million babies, God might have had the person that had the cure for cancer and a lot of other things that we're facing this day and time. But we're being punished because of the murder things that we're doing that's not pleasing to God. And so we need to do everything we can to protect all life. And here it shows a baby, and it talks about a baby's not a problem, it's not a mistake, it's not a burden, it's not an accident. Everything that people say about babies, but what a baby is, it's a miracle from God. And then God wants us to do everything we can to protect all life. And here's one of the babies that we've been blessed with through our Hope Center ministry. In Jeremiah 1:5, God said that before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And God had a plan for him. And that's the way it is in our lives. God knows all about us before we were created. God had a plan for our lives. And he wants us to do all we can to be a witness and a worker for him. And then I've got a few more pictures coming up of babies that recently born through the Hope Center ministry. And life is so precious. The little one back there, it's such a blessing. And we go to church a lot of times, and the children will get up and sing a song before we do our presentation, and it's such a blessing to see them working for the Lord and the love they have. This morning, the service we was at, after the service, we was going back to the back, and this little boy, he was about 10 or 11 years old, and he talked to me on my way by in the wheelchair. He said, I was telling him about the surgery coming up next Friday, and he said, I just want to let you know that I'll be praying for you in your surgery, that everything goes good. And you know, God knows the prayers from the heart, and God hears what the cry is. And this little one, each year we have a Christmas party for all the children and their families that's been involved with our Hope Center ministry. And this is one of the little ones at our last Christmas party. And it says the most precious jewels you ever have around your neck are the arms of your children. And now in our case, also your grandchildren. And there's one that had his first birthday. And this teenager volunteers at the Hope Center. She comes down to the Hope Center and she takes care of the babies while the mothers are taking classes on how to be a good parent. I would sing to you during these delays, but the silence is better for you than my singing. And then we have 2 assisted living facilities. We have the Laurels in Wise, Virginia. We have around 43 residents at this location. And then we have the Governor's Bend in Irwin, Tennessee, and we have around 53 residents at this location. So we have a little over 100 senior citizens at our assisted living facilities. We had one gentleman come there, and his health was really bad. He shared with us when he got there that he wasn't where he should be with the Lord. And he said that when his grandfather was living, that his grandfather was a Free Will Baptist preacher. And he told us, he said, I need to talk to the Free Will Baptist preacher that works with our facility there. So he came and talked to the gentleman, and he got his heart straightened out with the Lord and was where he should be. And he said, now I know that when it's my time to meet the Lord, I'll be ready to meet the Lord. But about a month after that, he went home to be with the Lord. But I'm glad he got to come there. He got to get close to the Lord again and get his life straightened out, was ready to meet God. So that's what it's all about, is to show love and compassion and prepare people to meet God. And then different ways that churches help our ministry. A lot of churches do different things throughout the year. They want to take on different projects. This church has done a lot of different things for the Children's Home and for the Hope Center and for our assisted living facilities. I know this was the first church where they made the fidget blankets for some of our senior citizens to help them with their memory issues, where they could do different things to keep their hands and their minds active. And we took those over, and they were so excited to get those. And so you never know. The Lord speaks to different churches in different ways to do different things, but he knows what our need is, and he'll speak to the people when we need it to take care of that need. And then a lot of times, number one thing is to pray for our ministry, that God will direct us in what we're doing, show us even more opportunities to reach out and be a blessing to others. A lot of times churches take up love offerings. They have us in their budgets. We have envelopes where families can partner with the ministry. And after the service, we have on the table at the back, we have a copy of our latest newsletter Also, pins with the ministry's name on it. Please help yourself to those. And then each year, a lot of churches participate in a special Mother's Day offering. Sometimes they do it on Mother's Day, sometimes during that month. But that's an important love offering for the ministry because our physical year ends at the end of June, and that helps determine how the year is going to end for the children's home. And then a lot of times they'll have drives, they'll collect paper products, cleaning supplies, and we use so much of that throughout the year. That's really a blessing. They'll have baby showers, they'll collect diapers and wipes, anything that an expectant mother can use, from maternity clothes to anything that a baby would need, we can use there at the Hope Center. We was at one church and they had collected some items, and they was helping us load up things for the Hope Center after the service. And one of the mothers there was telling us about her little daughter. She was 5 years old, and she said, my daughter was helping carry some diapers in. And she said, my daughter looked up at me and she said, I know we're collecting these diapers and things for the Hope Center. And she looked up at her mom and she said, they won't make me change any diapers, will they? And she said, no, you won't have to change any diapers. But a lot of times ladies like to sew and knit. Sometimes they'll make special baby blankets, baby caps, and that's really a blessing. A lot of times when they have a baby, they'll hold on to the special things they wore in the beginning, and it's always a memory and good memories of their baby when it was first born and throughout the life. A lot of times they'll take the baby bottles, they'll fill them with dimes or change and things like that. That's one way they help raise money for the Hope Center. And then the gift cards is a big help year-round for the Children's Home and the Hope Center. Walmart, we use those to get clothes for the children when they first come, things they need on a daily basis, things for birthdays, Christmas. We had one young man that was brought to us at the Children's Home. He was 14 years old, and he had been in an abusive situation. He had a stepdad there that had been abusing him. So they brought him to us in the middle of the night, and he just had the clothes he was wearing. And he had a pair of tennis shoes on, and he had them taped up with duct tape holding them on his feet. So the next day we went and got him some new shoes and clothes and different things that he needed. McDonald's and Pizza Hut are good because we'll take them out and have special activities with the children. That way we can do special things with them. Remember one time the church had collected some coupons and gift cards for McDonald's, and we was over there and we went by McDonald's there in Greenville to get a sandwich on the way back home. And a couple of our teachers was there from our school, and they had about 4 or 5 of our students there, had taken them out for a meal and said, we're having a break. They're studying for their final exams, and we just want them to get away and rest their minds a little bit. And she said, we brought them here to McDonald's. She said, matter of fact, reason we're here today is you just recently brought over some of McDonald's gift cards that the churches had give us, and so we're using those to take them out for a special treat. So the Lord just really blesses. And then a lot of churches, when they have Bible school, they get their children involved in, and they'll have a special project to help our Children's Home or the Hope Center. And then we have the Bucket Brigade for churches who want to participate in it. We provide buckets to churches. They collect change in it. Sometimes they'll send it in monthly, sometimes quarterly, sometimes annually. Sometimes they say use it wherever the need is. Sometimes they want us to go to the Hope Center or for the children's Christmas. So if there's a special place they want us to use that money, that's where we apply that money. And then we have one church that has Christmas in July, and this has been the 6th year they've done this. They put up a Christmas tree, they bring in paper products, diapers, and wipes, and then we go and have a service with them. And then this is a picture of Brother Jim Mccomas on the left, and then Ivan and Ruth Kennedy. And Ivan and Ruth grew up at the Children's Home. After they got grown, they ended up dating, and they wanted to come back to the Children's Home and get married at the Rock Church they went to there growing up. So they came back, had their wedding there at the church at the Children's Home. And now he's been pastor of a church in Tennessee for several years. Also, he served on our board of directors. And a while back, he felt led, him and his wife, to move back to the Children's Home. So they're living there on campus. He's one of the ministers that's working with their children there. And they also travel around the churches and share about the children's home. And the young man that was just recently saved in our drug and alcohol program, Brother Ivan baptized him just a few weeks ago. And Family Ministries is giving hope to hurting children, to young mothers, to senior citizens. Some of you may remember the story we shared about the set of twins that we took in a few years ago. And when we first got them as a brother and sister, they were 18 months old. The parents was messed up with drugs, and the children had been neglected. It was really a bad situation. But we had a preacher's wife that just completed her foster care training, and they said they wanted to be the foster parents for the twins. Well, Audrey got to go and be with them right off, but Joseph, for the 18 months he was at home, he spent most of his time in a little wooden crib, and he had taken and gnawed all that wood off the rail of the crib, and his little stomach and intestines was full of splinters. And matter of fact, when we first got him, he just barely could hold his head up, and we had to rush him to the hospital. He had to have emergency surgery to remove all those splinters. He spent 5 weeks in the hospital recovering, and then he got to go and be with his sister. And it ended up that the parents of the twins said they didn't want the twins, and so they signed their rights away. And so we went and told the preacher's wife what had happened and said, it looks like the twins will be put up for adoption. And the preacher's wife began to cry, and they said, we've been talking about it and praying about it, and we fell in love with the twins. And if it did come to that they wanted to go through the process, adopted them. So they sent us a picture from the courtroom, the adoption proceedings. And on the left is a picture of the little twins. On the right is the preacher's wife that adopted them, the judge that handled the adoption proceedings. And this past December, the twins turned 7 years old. And this couple adopted these 3 siblings. The sign says, we stole their hearts, now we're stealing their last name. And then these 3 sisters were adopted by their foster parents. And these 3 siblings were adopted by their foster parents. In the last 2.5 years, we've had over 20 of our foster care children adopted by the foster parents. So the Lord's really blessed and touching a lot of families. And then at Christmas time, we had the Grinch show up, and he helped pass out a new pair of tennis shoes to all the children. And this is a more update picture of Audrey and Joseph. It's such a blessing to see the smiles on their face, knowing they're in a good, loving home. And then at Christmas time, we have a special dinner for all of them. They come back, and at the last dinner we had, I was watching Audrey and Joseph was watching his sister everywhere she went to make sure she was safe and she was okay. He still had that protective instinct to take care of his sister. And then Brother Frank Woods, who was our director for many years, a while back, he was at their church preaching a revival service, and he got a more update picture of him, and he sent it to us so that we can share it when we go to the churches. And there's a picture of them, and just to see the smiles on their face and knowing they're just good, happy, healthy children. And then Brother Jim felt led to start having Bible studies in his office. And after the first Bible studies, they were starting to go back to the cottages. And one of the young men stopped and he said, I'm not a Christian. He said, I want to talk to you about getting saved. So Brother Jim took him back in his office and talked to him about God's love and about the plan of salvation. And he accepted Christ as his Savior that day. And then a couple weeks later, he was baptized there at the children's home. And I've got just a few more pictures to share with you. And I've got a few pictures of some of the children saved and baptized through our Bible studies there. And this is some of the young men that were saved and baptized at the children's home through the Bible studies. And this was the 8th young man that saved and baptized there at the children's home, saved through the Bible studies. And I've got one more young man, the one that was saved in our drug and alcohol program. And here's Brother Ivan was baptizing him just a few weeks ago. And I've got a couple more pictures to share, and then we'll have all the pictures finished. In Jude, verse 22, it says, and of some have compassion, making a difference. And the desire of our ministry and the desire of the churches is to show compassion to others and make a difference in their lives. Sometimes it's strangers that come in. Sometimes it's church family that just need to be loved and showed compassion through things they're going through. But I want to share with you the situation here. What happened a while back, Brother Jim was in West Virginia holding the camp meeting services that week. And after one of the services, this young man's parents, well, they had been his foster parents, and they had just recently adopted him, and they brought him up to Brother Jim to share his story and what had happened in this young man's life. And what happened, both of his parents were drug addicts, and one day the parents was fighting over a handgun, and the gun went off and shot and killed his little sister. And his mother's in prison now because of it. But Brother Jim was talking to him and having prayer with him, and told him that God loved him, that he was a special young man, and that God had a special plan in his life. And he told him, he said, I'll be praying for you every day. And he said, if you ever need to talk to me anytime, call me anytime. But you can see in the picture here the hurt in this young man's life of what he witnessed and saw. But I'm just so thankful that we could be there to share God's love with him. And we're praying that God will help him through everything he's had to go through. And then, compassion makes a difference in everyone's life. People go through a lot of hurt. And I've got one more picture here to share with you. It's talking about sharing God's love and how the compassion can help heal a broken heart. A lot of times we have members in our church come and we'll say, how are you doing today? And they'll try to have a smile on their face and I'm doing fine. A lot of times we as Christians try to act like we're superhuman, that we can handle anything comes our way. But really deep down, a lot of times we're hurting so bad that we just need love and compassion. And there was one issue that we're facing a lot this day and time at the children's home, churches we go to and everything, is how a lot of people are suffering from, they're having a lot of depression and a lot of health issues and different things sometimes. But there was one young girl at this one church that she didn't go to the church, but all the teenagers in the church knew her. But she was 16 years old. She seemed like she was really happy, and they knew her from school and everything, and they thought everything was going fine in her life. She had just been voted on as to go on the cheerleading team for the senior year in school. Her father was the football coach there for the football team. She had a lot of friends. They thought she was happy and everything was going fine. But one Monday, they got word that weekend that she had, at 16 years old, that she had committed suicide. And they were all so shocked because they thought, well, she's so happy. A lot of times it don't show up and we don't realize it. If we did, we'd go to them and do all we can to tell them we love them and everything to help them. But there was a man, he taught the teenagers class at his church, and he knew that everybody in his class, all the teenagers knew her from school. And he was praying that the next Sunday when he went to church, that the Lord would give him something that he could share with his class to remind them that they're special and that God loved them. And so this is the illustration he gave the next Sunday in Sunday school. He took out a $20 bill, and he said, I'm going to give this $20 bill away to somebody here in class today. Who would like to have it? And every one of them said, I would. He said, well, wait a minute. And he took that $20 bill, and he just wadded it up, wrinkled it up in his hand, and then he held it back up. He said, now who wants it? And again, every one of them said, I do. He said, well, one more thing. And he took it and he put it down on the floor, and he stomped on it, and he crushed it under his foot. And then he picked it up, and he said, now who wants it? And again, every one of them said, I do. He said, well, the illustration I want to share with you today is this, that it doesn't look like it did when I first took it out of my wallet. It's all wrinkled up now and it don't look the same, but you know that it still hasn't lost its value. It's still worth $20. And then he quoted John 3:16. He said, "For God so loved the world." And then he put each one of their names in place of the world. He said, "God so loved you." And each one of us that's here tonight, God so loved each one of us that he sent his son to die for us. And even though Satan will come along and try to mess up our lives, a lot of times he'll come and he'll try to get teenagers to rebel against their parents. He'll try to get different ones to try drugs or alcohol. And then Satan will come back to them and he said, "Well, you've really messed up now. God don't want to have anything to do with you." And he'll point out the mistakes they made. But what the teacher told the children there was, he said, "But just remember that God looks at the heart. He don't look at the mistakes we've made, but God looks at the heart. He loved us all so much that he sent his son to die for us. And he's prepared to take care of all of our needs. And so what we need to do is just call on the Lord. And whenever we see someone that's messed up or something, sometimes we look at them and we're quick to judge them and say, well, they've really messed up now. But we got to remember that they still have a heart that God loves, and the price has already been paid for that life. And we need to do all we can to encourage and help that person. I heard one more thing. It just came to my mind, and then I'll be through and I'll turn it back over to the pastor. But I heard a story one time about a young man. He was a freshman in high school, and he had just started going to that school, and he wasn't fitting in too good at first. And one Friday, he was getting all of his books out of his locker, and he was getting ready to go home. And this bully comes along and knocks all the books out of his hand. And so this other young man comes by that's in his class and helped him pick up his books and everything, and got to talking to him and found out they both walked the same way home from school. So he helped them carry his books, and they were walking home. And while they were walking, he invited that young man that just had his books knocked out of his hands to come to church with him. So the next Sunday, that young man went to church with him and got saved. And then they ended up being the best friends all the way through high school. And then in the senior year, they were giving a graduation speech, and this young man that had all the books knocked out of his hand and when he was a freshman and had gotten saved, got to give a speech for the graduation. And when he got up there, he said, well, first of all, I just want to thank God for saving me. And then he said, the next thing I want to do is share with you a story that happened to me. He said, when I first come to this school as a freshman, he said, one Friday I was cleaning all my books out of my locker, and he said I was getting ready to take them home, and this person came by and knocked them all out of my hands. Then he called his friend's name out, and he said, but he came by and helped me pick them up. And then he walked home with me, and he invited me to church. And he said, I went to his church, and I got saved. And he said, that changed my life completely. And he said it helped me all the way through high school. He said, but what my friend didn't know is the day that I was cleaning all those books out of my locker, he said, I was getting ready. He said, I want to get all my belongings out of the school here. And he said, I was planning on going home that weekend and committing suicide. And he said, I didn't want my mother to have to go back to the school and deal with any of my belongings. But he said that his kindness turned my life around, and pointing Christ in my life made all the difference. So we never know the type of impact we're going to have on a person. The brother here in the prayer room was talking about, he said, if you ever need to talk about anything, he said, I'm here to listen. And that's what we need to do. We need to be a good witness for the Lord, to show that compassion, to make a difference in people's lives. Because we're all hurting sometime or another, and we just need a kind word. Sometimes we just need a hug. Sometimes just a shoulder to cry on. But God has a purpose for each one of us to be a blessing to others. I want to thank you again so much for allowing us to come each year to give you an update on the ministry and all your prayers and support, because this is your ministry. That's the reason we're there, because of your prayers and support. And I'll turn it back over to you, Pastor. Thank you so much.
Amen tonight. I pray you've been blessed by the update. Thank you, Brother Mike, Sister Teresa. And if God's laid it on your heart in any kind of way to do work or labor and give to this ministry in any kind of way, you've seen all the kind of ways we can give and all the things they got going on. And sometimes we can't do something, but we can help those that are doing something. And so anything that's laid on your heart, just let us know. Get up with one of us, and we know how to get a hold of Brother Mike real easily. And we'll make sure we help you, assist you to help them in any kind of way. Let's all stand, and we'll get us a verse of a song tonight. And if you feel like you need to come and pray, and if you're lost tonight, you want to be saved, tonight's a good night to do that. And as we sing this verse of the song, Imitations
I was saved in my youth, and I live for